Hi mamas. In 6 minutes or less, I'm going to talk about how to engage this pandemic thing, how to be in this pandemic thing. How to embrace our lives as they actually are, and how to do it in the context of a homeschooled family. So this is a discussion point that I've been asked to do in a group setting in the next couple months. And no doubt I am in the same boat as you. I'm a homeschooling family having to adjust to this new reality or new normal or whatever this is. So I'm with you. But I've learned this, the very first quote that I've ever memorized, I was a kid that loved memorizing quotes, was Henry David Thoreau. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. That I memorized that as my first quote. I just wonder, what does that mean? Why did I memorize that one? I didn't understand it as a kid, but I do much more so now. And I think we often think that if we just don't say whatever challenging thing is going on in here, then it's okay. We're okay. But our reality is that we have to accept what's actually going on in here, and also what's going on here and how it's affecting us. So I think that one of the biggest things that we can do to help ourselves during this time is actually simply to accept that sometimes it is what it is. That life just isn't the way you might script it. That maybe you can't fully capture the charmed life. Acceptance is by far one of the most challenging things for us to do, especially because we didn't go into this homeschool thing so that we could just roll with the punches. We are trying to craft and create something and enable something in our homes, in our families. And it turns out this year teaches us, all of us, that we're not in control. Acceptance is required. And though it sounds like that might be one of the easiest tools for me to share with you, that it would seem too simple even. As you know and I know, it's actually hard to do, and it really is a practice. So the process of accepting means that you're actually acknowledging your feelings about it. And you and I know that we don't have the same experience of this. In fact, if we personally do know each other, we might actually have very different experiences of this. We are all on this rocky sea together, they say, but we're not necessarily in the same boat. We have very different experiences on that rocky sea. And I acknowledge your experience as remarkably different than mine, despite us both having homeschool families. We have very different life experiences. But first and foremost, no matter what it is that's going on in here, we need to acknowledge our feelings. Allow ourselves some days, some moments to ride the roller coaster waves of what is going on, or why do we have to live like this, or what is my responsibility in this, or do I, or why is this even happening? Why are people believing this? All the things that we could possibly be feeling, we need to acknowledge them honestly. Acknowledge that sometimes they take us on an emotional roller coaster. Sometimes we could just schedule them in though, because I don't know about you, but it doesn't always fit within the construct of my day, my emotions and how I'm reacting to things. So sometimes you could actually schedule in a moment where you are contemplating these things, if you so choose. You don't have to sit in them, and you don't have to engage the internal challenge all the time, because as we both know, there's always one more thing to think about, and there's one more story, and there's one more discussion we have with another relative or another friend, and there's always something else that's fueling what the undercurrent is inside here already. And sometimes we don't need to do that all the time. So we could schedule it in. But despite this time being a challenging time, we can still frame it in a way that says, how do we create memories despite this? How can we create memories so that we can look back on this? Assuming that there's a looking back on, which I believe there is, then we're going to look back on this and say, how do we get through this? What was it that we did? What are the moments or the memories that we had with our kids that actually were kind of sweet? Sort of like the electricity going out. If you've had that experience, I've had it many times. The electricity goes out and you can't access screens. And you can't check your email or your Facebook or your Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is you do. You just light the candles, sit around, play a game, read a book, do something quiet. It wasn't what you planned, but it actually was kind of sweet. So you could frame these challenging times in the context of, could I see sweet memories through this time? Could I remember sweet memories? Get outside help. If I need to say that out loud for you, I'm of the persuasion that therapy or outside objective people that have ability to impact you or understand you or give you tools for what you're going through are worth their weight in gold. I am so grateful that I got to chat with someone that was my therapist on the podcast that I released today. Norm Quantz is a trauma counselor, no less, and he has recently released his second book, Trauma No More. So I encourage you to take a listen to that podcast. Get outside help. Yes, you can. It is worth its weight in gold for that perspective, or just to feel like you have some outside objective listener that actually knows how to engage in what it is you're challenged by. Expect that you won't always know what to do. That's kind of part of that acceptance that we're living in this world, learning and growing. That it isn't about getting to the static endpoint of now we have arrived, now we have figured this thing out. There will always be one more thing that we've got to learn. And if you come from that very popularly named growth mindset, then things frankly don't feel quite as hard. No, I want to correct myself. Sometimes there are some scenarios that really are that hard. And so if you think, yeah, but you don't know about this thing, then you're right, I don't. And I'm not probably speaking to that thing. But even that thing will, in the long term, enable you to stand stronger over the course of time. I do know what I'm speaking to, and I've had those experiences too. The ones that are jaw-dropping on the floor. Is this for real? Did this actually happen? You're in shock and in grief for a very long time. Yes, even those ones. Though I'm not saying that you should pretend that you're in this happy accepting place when actually you're in deep grief. But for all the not so big things that we're all experiencing this year, acceptance of the scenario as it is does make it easier. In my book, Homeschool-Mama-Self-Care, I actually included this coffee talk for stressful times at the back of the book. I only included it right before it went to publication because I wrote my book long before the pandemic. And I really didn't think that it would be all that necessary for a pandemic, but it might be useful for other stressful times. Turns out I was wrong. But something that I noticed in there, though, that I said to send the kids to school. There might be a season that you want to send the kids to school. I'm not going to say that season right now. No, not right now, for obvious reasons. However, I do think there comes a time when you have a really stressful time in your home that sometimes that is the best choice, is to accept that maybe you need to take a break from homeschooling because you don't know how to engage all of the things at the same time and you're overwhelmed by whatever really challenging thing you're dealing with at the time. So I'll add that as a thought. Of course, I'm going to say it again and again to alter your expectations. From one mom to another, I wrote this because it absolutely has applied to me probably all my life, but it has definitely applied to me all my parenting years and definitely in my homeschool years. If you are in the moment of a really stressful time or you just feel overwhelmed by that, no matter what it is, there is no academic emergency. It does not matter to me what your argument is for a child and their necessary educational path or where they're going in 3 months or whether they need to stay on target for this grade or for, it doesn't matter to me what maybe I'm going to be given as a discussion point. I genuinely think there is no academic emergency. Your child will learn what they need to learn when they need to learn it for the next step, when the next step must happen. And if it means a massive shift or a temporary pause, it's okay. It will benefit them in the long term. One day I'll share with you about my pause and my husband's pause before we did nursing and medical school as well. And of course, I'm going to encourage you to just be. That ultimately, beyond anything, your goal right now is to just be. So if it feels too hard to do whatever, fill in the blank, the first thing you thought of when I said, if it feels too hard to do that thing, then stop doing that thing. You can stop doing that thing, even if it's for a short period, and just practice being. Our goals are to be a quiet space for our families. Frankly, to find it sometimes for ourselves. They're looking at us. We know that. We feel the pressure of that. We're not always going to do it right. It's okay. But our goal is to just be, however that looks to you, to be at peace. And so in whatever form or fashion you want to engage that, that's your first goal. The third thing that I would tell you is to self-nurture. Surprise, no surprise. That in a variety of different challenging situations, we need to practice that self-nurture. We can do no great things, Mother Teresa says, only small things with great love. So nurture your be. Be still, do less, get comfortable with your solitude and with yourself. Sometimes get comfortable with your boredom and just be still. Remember that this is hard, but it isn't forever. But we can all encourage each other to keep on keeping on no matter what. We're all in this big ocean or sea together, all in different boats. I see you. I hear you. I am you. So let's just keep on keeping on together.